Kaylee Cuoco and Sam Claflin star in the MGM Plus original series, Vanished. When the man Alice loves disappears on a train to the south of France, every romantic memory becomes evidence. Every intimate detail, a potential threat. She thought she knew everything about him, but she may not even know his real name. New episode Sunday on MGM Plus. Finding the truth is a dangerous affair.
LinkedIn is pretty great at a lot of things, like helping you tap into the latest trends and insights in your field. We cannot stop your coworker from tapping her pencil. LinkedIn can help you find new jobs that align with your career goals. We cannot help you find the source of that weird smell in the office fridge. Ew. And while we can't stop your coworkers from bringing their hobbies into the office, LinkedIn can help you bring your career to the next level. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
Hello and welcome to The Shift, the podcast that aims to tell the no-holds-barred truth about being a woman post-40. Created and hosted by me, journalist and author Sam Baker. Now, if you say the word wellness, it conjures an instant image in our minds. Well, my mind. Glowing skin, enviable abs, sludgy-looking juice, muted leisurewear, and lots of money. Where we used to have diets and anti-aging cream, we now have Peloton and ashwaghanda gummies and collagen powder. Or we do, if we can afford to. So I'm delighted to welcome to The Shift the award-winning American journalist, Amy Larocca, who has written an entire book on the subject, How to Be Well, aptly subtitled, Finding a Way Through the Self-Care Epidemic Without Losing Your Mind and Your Money.
We have to do better by our girls, right? Like, this is ridiculous. I really would like them to waste a lot less time than I did, than my friends did. I'd like them to waste much less time worrying that they don't live up to some unrealistic expectations about the externalities of their bodies.
Now, I've been a fan of Amy's work for a long time because for 20 years or so, she was the fashion editor of New York magazine. And like me, she's interested in the recent shift from owning the latest it bag to owning the latest it abs. She also wrote a fantastic piece for the New York Times back in 2022 called Welcome to the Menopause Gold Rush, which I will link to in the show notes. Amy joined me to talk about how easy it is to get sucked in by the virtue trap of wellness, how suddenly everyone's a frontierswoman, bovine colostrum, how the industry is sucking in teenage boys, and the price of entry to adult womanhood. We also ranted about Oprah, HRT, bionic babies, biohacking, and so much more. Thank you so much, Amy, for coming on The Shift.
It's so my pleasure.
Before we get on to the book, which, as I've said, it's just so dog-eared and I absolutely inhaled it. It's covered in scribbles. I mean, it pushes all my buttons, so there may be ranting. Right. Be warned, there may be ranting.
Please rant. Please do rant.
And you feel free to rant too. Before we get on to that, I'd like to talk just a little bit about you. So, I mean, your professional life ever so briefly, but also I want to talk about your childhood because you say, I think it's quite near the end, you talk about, and I've written the quote down and inevitably I can't find it, but you talk about how the constant influence, if you're a woman, and this is, it's generalizing, but I don't know any women who aren't constantly worried about how their body looks and have been for years. When do you, I mean, you're like a child of the 70s, 80s, a little bit younger than me.
I'm 50 years old.
You're 50, yeah, and I'm coming up the next one. Look, tell me about that, about little Amy.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to remember not being aware. I mean, actually, no, that's not fair. If I'm very honest, I can remember puberty as the sort of before and after, this kind of blissful before of unawareness, and the after, that being a time when suddenly everything was about self-improvement, right? Like this sort of entering into adult womanhood meant shouldering this burden of always striving for something more, always being somewhat unhappy with what you had been dealt in the looks department, in the body department, and always being engaged in the project of making it better, whether it was an exercise regime, a diet, something you were doing to make your hair grow in thicker, or your skin shinier, or your pores smaller, or something. You always had to be engaged in the project of improving it. And if you weren't engaged actively in that project, you were failing somehow in the act of being a successful adult woman. You were letting the side down. You weren't doing your job. And I think for me, that really began in adolescence. And I don't think I'm alone. I think, unfortunately, my friends and I, once we sort of graduated from childhood into 17 magazine, YM magazine, Mademoiselle magazine, we were being instructed that this was now part of our job.
It's interesting when you use the word project, and I was thinking, yeah, and then it is a job, isn't it? It's your job, and it's almost more your job than your job.
Yeah, it was as much my job as being a good student at school, getting good grades. It was as much a preoccupation for me and my friends as anything else we were undertaking. I don't think that stood out as a problem. I think that stood out as a success. I think that stood out as one of the markers of what made me, a good girl, was that I cared, was that I was trying to be better all the time. And there's a book I read in the research for writing this book that just sort of floored me. And it's by an anthropologist and historian named Joan Brumberg. And she found diaries of teenage girls, and her research ends in the 80s, but it goes back 100 years, and it's diaries of teenage girls. And it's all about this project of self-improvement. And the girls are all completely dissatisfied with themselves and talking in their personal diaries about what they're going to do to be better.
Is it The Body Project or something like that?
The Body Project. That's exactly what it is. The Body Project by Joan Brumberg. It made me so sad. And as the mother of two teenage daughters, I just think they are always like, the language changes over time, but, now they say they're going to go on a cleanse, like as if there's anything dirty in them at all, as if they're not totally perfect.
How old are they now?
Right now they're 13 and 14, but soon to be 13 and 15. It's just, but it's never changed. And it was in the 19th century, it was a bit more like, speak only when spoken to. But the project is always about improving. There's something admirable about like always trying to be better and paying attention. But what makes me uncomfortable about it is how much of it is focused on the body. It's like how much is focused on the body. And then how much of that immediately becomes how much is focused on the appearance of the body.
Yeah. So how much of having, now teenage daughters, but presumably they weren't teenage when you started writing the book, how much of having daughters played into your decision to write How to Be Well?
A lot. I think a lot of it. It's always made me sad how much I have thought about it. And then it was like, as soon as I had daughters, well before I thought about writing this book, it was like, I knew the second I had daughters, I was like, listen, I am going to do everything in my power to try as hard as I can. And it's like, I am fighting against like cultural forces that are like, it's like sort of, that kind of me versus like everything. Although I think like increasingly the world is sort of on my side here to say, we have to do better by our girls, right? Like, this is ridiculous. I really, really, really would like them to waste a lot less time than I did, than my friends did. I'd like them to waste much less time worrying that they don't live up to some unrealistic expectation about the externalities of their bodies.
Well, I can't tell you how many women come on here and at some point during the conversation say that they wish they had spent less time, finding themselves wanting, finding their bodies wanting, finding their looks wanting, finding their personalities wanting, almost, I can't quite say it's 100%, but it's a lot. It's a lot of fingers, put it that way.
Yeah, it really is. And even when you get into the internals, like, I wish I were this or that. I mean, you get into some deep stuff. And I don't even if you even put the deep stuff aside, I'm literally I wish my thigh bone were longer.
Yeah.
Really, really, really.
Yeah.
I'm if we don't even get into the deep stuff, if we just really stick with the basic, you're never going to make the ratio of your thigh to your abdomen longer. If we just stick with the really, really, really external things that you will never change. If we could just stick with that kind of thing, that would be a relief to me. Of course I care about the deeply internal things and the messages about, what kind of person you should be and all that. Just let's just talk about the really basic stuff that you have absolutely no power to change. If we could just start there, I'd be happy.
Yeah, so tell me about your own kind of wellness journey, because you did get kind of sucked into it, didn't you?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I think one of the really crucial things about writing this book is that I do not want to be a scold, and I do not want to make anyone feel ridiculous for getting sucked in or trying things or feeling they do something that does help them on some level or make them feel better. I don't know how any woman could be alive and exist and resist it entirely or feel impervious to it. If you do, you're made of stronger stuff than me or anyone I know, right? Well done you, but I certainly will fall prey. I'll be really? Wow, this is going to make my life better? Okay, this is the one.
There was one, I can't remember where it was. I wrote it down. But even as I was reading it, I found myself Googling collagen, and collagen gummies. I was collagen. Maybe I need to add it to my regime.
Now, creatine or I was last winter I had the flu and I was on the phone with a friend of mine and I was oh, I feel terrible. And I'm hallucinating and I'm in a puddle of sweat. And I'm oh, and she's oh, well, I don't have the flu because I've been taking bovine colostrum. And I'm that's disgusting. Powdered cow colostrum. But then I'm ordering the bovine colostrum. Would I have not gotten the flu? I mean, I had my flu shot and it just wasn't working very well. But I was well, my flu shot didn't work, but maybe bovine colostrum in a tub ordered from God knows where, that would have worked.
Could be anything.
I ordered the freaking bovine colostrum, right? We all are going to fall in for it, right? And then it came and I was this is disgusting. It smelled so bad.
And how much was it, just out of interest as well?
Oh, some, I don't know, $125 or something.
You're worse than me. That makes me feel better.
I was really sick. I was really I had a raging fever for 4 days or something. I was very vulnerable in that moment that I heard about her bovine colostrum. I really do want to say we are all, no judgment whatsoever. But I think, for me, it starts with the teenager that we were talking about who sort of, was reading 17 magazine and thought, I thought on some irrational level, I could change the length of my tibia, right? If I just worked hard enough. And that's where it starts with exercise classes and weird diets that I would have copied out of magazines and certainly wouldn't have thought of as wellness, but that's sort of where it begins.
Yeah, because back then we were still using words like diet,
Yeah.
And it was all about diet and fitness and beauty, wasn't it?
It was all about diet and fitness, and that's not even a word we used, right? And then I think it really changed, of course, the word starts changing in marketing, right? And as that's happening is when I'm becoming a mother. I'm still working in fashion, and I'm realizing that a couple of things are happening. And one is you two are on the, the fashion circuit, and I start realizing that like fashion is becoming kind of democratic because of the internet, and shows are streaming, and fashion people do not like this, right? They're like, they're like, only we can see this. We do not like whoever in their sweatpants, like streaming the Prada show at the same time that we're seeing this. We don't like it. And so they start like looking for some sort of more exclusive category. And like wellness definitely starts emerging as this more exclusive category. Sometimes I pin it to this interview that Amanda Chantal Bacon gave to Elle, and when she's describing her morning routine. And it's like, at this point, like, everybody knows how to pronounce Loewe. Like, remember when nobody knew how to pronounce Loewe and you could really tell like a fashion person from a non-fashion person because they'd say low. Yeah. And like, you're like, it was like a real fashion person would say Loewe and you were like, that's how you knew. But now everyone knows how to say Loewe. But then Amanda Chantal Bacon like comes in, and she's the owner of this like super fancy juicing place in California. And she's very beautiful and she's super chic. And she is describing her morning routine. And I could not pronounce a single thing. And it's in Elle magazine. And I could not pronounce a single thing in her morning routine. And she was basically like drinking like ground up pearls out of like a hand pounded copper cup. It was like suddenly there was just like a totally new gold standard for aspiration and a new language. The Olsen sisters in Paris before the Row presentation, which, by the way, could not be streamed and could not be photographed. So they're like sort of announcing that you're in an exclusive space, like they're handing out green juice shot.
Most magazines didn't even get invited.
Right. So it's like, so we're in this like new area of exclusivity, and like, what are you being served? You're being served green juice. And they would sometimes just have these like very attractive waiters with like a tray of like vegetables. So it was like wellness was kind of like becoming this like very high,
elite, basically
status elite thing. And so I sort of started to notice that. And then it was like, fashion people had always been on diets, but it became like purity. Like it was like you'd be on a shoot and like, that makeup artist Gucci Westman was like a wellness queen. And she was always like, you'd be on a shoot and she'd be like giving you her latest wellness thing. And there was a doctor in New York, Dr. Passler, and he always had everyone eating these like goat cheese logs that you had to go to the Union Green Market to get. And it was just like, it just started like there were certain places in Milan you could go to get green juice. Like it just became the kind of language. And then I started noticing a lot of fashion people actually leaving fashion, doing nutrition degrees, becoming health counselors. Like it started really like picking up speed. And in the middle of all this, I had my kids, and my second child was very, very, very sick when she was born. And I noticed how people treated me when I had a sick baby. There was definitely the implication that I was impure as a woman. There were hints of it with my first child because I'd had a C-section there, and I was terrible at breastfeeding. Like I just was like a total breastfeeding failure. That was very unpopular particularly among my fashion friends. I'd tried to deliver her the old-fashioned way, been really bad at it. And after like very long time in labor, I'd had a C-section. Then I'd been an absolute catastrophe at breastfeeding. I could feel a lot of disdain. I had a sick baby, a really, really, really sick baby. She didn't come home from the hospital for 3 months. My failure to breastfeed looked quaint at that point. She didn't eat by mouth until she was 6 months old. She lived in a plastic box until she was 3 months old. And, all these kind of fashionable, it was like everyone was like a frontierswoman. Waldorf and wooden toys and all this stuff was really fashionable. And I had this like bionic baby who was addicted to opioids and, a junkie who I was like, I had no choice in the matter. And I could really feel that disdain for both me. And, I really felt I was a failure in the eyes of this, this kind of wellness ideal. It really made me think a lot about what is valued, the pressures we put on each other as women, the expectations. I mean, it really it really made me think a lot about what we expect of each other. I'd sort of, so there were different levels where it was like, I thought of it kind of the comical aspects of it, like Amanda Chantal Bacon and her stupid copper cup. But then I was like, what are we actually doing to each other? What are we saying to each other when we do this? Luckily, my daughter made a full recovery and she's fine because of medical science, not because she only played with wooden toys. She's 13 and she's perfect. And, and that's really because of medical intervention, not because I didn't allow her near a plastic baby bottle or, it's entirely because of medical intervention. So that got me thinking. And then while I was writing the book, so then I was, and even still the book started and made me think a lot about women, how we have all these pressures put on us about what, from a very young age about what we look like. But then as we become mothers, we have these very, very, very real pressures put on us. So it's like we're having these very, very shallow pressures put on us for our whole lives. And then we have the health of our families put on us. And so it's like we both have these like very ridiculous pressures put on us and very, very, very deep responsibilities put on us. And it's like all coming at us at once. And then, of course, while I was writing the book, COVID happened. And I was like, this is all too much. And of course, now in America, it's bananas and everyone's like taking away vaccinations. And, so it's just like, sometimes I'm like, how do women? It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, part of me feels like that's intentional because the less we think about anything else, the better as far as they are concerned. It's like you make the point about how every generation has its own imaginary ideal, and whether it's 50s housewife or 80s Jane Fonda or noughties Gwyneth, they're always very thin and they don't complain. Often also wealthy and mainly white, but
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, it's very divisive, right? Like it has the effect of like, I know how incredibly divisive it is. Like, I don't want my kids around unvaccinated kids. So it's incredibly divisive. And I participate in that. And I also, at the same time, like, I do feel a lot of empathy I feel a lot of anger, but I also do feel a lot of empathy for the women who are, what we call in America, and I don't know how this is, I don't know what it's called in England, but what they call the so-called Maha moms, the sort of RFK Jr., like anti-vaxxing moms, because I think it's fear-based.
Something you said about motherhood just now, and it struck me when I was reading the book over and over again, is that it's about, yes, there's the top level of everybody's fighting against the term anti-aging and wrinkles. So whoever the genius is who came up with glow, I hope they had a massive pay rise, because now we call everything glow and that's okay. So
it's okay, right? But we know what it is.
Yeah, there's that, but I fall for it all the time. And there's that at the top line, but underpinning all that are these moments in our lives. Motherhood is one, menopause is another, which we'll get onto. She wrote that brilliant piece. We are vulnerable. We are looking for intervention's not the right word. Help. We're looking for help. We're looking for advice. Yeah. We're looking for information. We might be feeling shit or thinking we're doing something wrong over and above the things we normally think we're doing wrong. In amongst this, here's this thing that might help you, which is like on the surface, a good thing, comes this whole movement of, you're feeling shit. Here, let me sell you all these things you can't afford that don't work. Ooh.
I know, it's like the sort of, in the fairy tale, it's like the witchy lady that comes to town, right? With the like, oh, hello. It's like the traveling roadshow that comes to town with the mysterious bottle. And you're like, oh.
Yeah, what's in it and will it work? And I think.
And what will it cost me?
Yeah, and can I afford it? And how can I afford it?
Mm-hmm.
Wellness feels so much more insidious because it's got that cloak of, I don't know, superior
virtue.
Virtue. That's
right?
exactly the word.
We all sort of knew. We all sort of like had come to, be suspicious of the beauty industry, right? Like we know the beauty industry is selling us like this false bill of goods. We know. And then, oh, it's wellness. Oh, Dove soap is going to give us these commercials that make us cry, where the babies can find their mothers, or suddenly it's still the beauty industry though, it's still, but the word wellness, it implies that it cares that you feel good. It implies that it cares. And I think like one of the things about it is that like you're always on a tightrope, right? And the tightrope is like, when am I doing something that makes me feel good, that makes me feel better, that makes me feel like I'm taking care of myself, I'm putting on the lipstick that makes me feel good when I walk into the room, I'm like looking after myself, and that's good. And it's like, when do I fall off the side that makes me feel bad, right? Like, and it's like, you never quite know. And it's like this sort of constant vigilance thing, right? Like, when did I go in? I did the sauna and it helped me calm down and I felt great and I got the endorphin surge. And then when did it just feel futile? Like I was throwing good money after bad, like, so you're always kind of walking this tightrope of, this thing made me feel really good. Oh God, I've fallen off and now I feel bad. Like, when did the exercise class go from something that got my heart pumping and got my endorphins up to like, oh God, I have to go to this exercise class and I just am trying to lose weight. And it's just, so it's like, you're always kind of negotiating there. Because of course, like all of, a lot of these like things make you feel better and they are good for you. But you're like, when did I overspend? When did I, so you have to kind of be in this constant dialogue of like, which is good, which is bad. Like, of course, the lines are different for every person.
But it's the language, isn't it, as well? The language that has been co-opted around wellness, the kind of like stronger, not thinner, glowier, not younger, anti-aging, cleanse, not fast. We don't say diet anymore. Diet. Oh no, we don't do that.
Oh, no, we don't do that. But why don't you not eat all these things?
Yeah. And I suppose it just does all go back to virtue, but it does also feel just like a massive, I don't know. I've been thinking about the word con. Yeah, mind fuck, totally. But I wonder whether con is too strong, whether it's more of a sleight of hand or whether actually it is just a big fat hoax.
I think, well, sometimes, some things are, a con. And some things are a sleight of hand and some things are simple marketing. And I think that's the thing, is it's this like constant vigilance, right? Like, and some things are less than that. And some things are, some things aren't that sinister. Some things, like you think about like Dr. Oz, and who's, I don't know, is he well known here?
I think people in the UK know him because of Oprah. I don't know whether they know what he's gone on to do, Yeah, and
he has this very popular television show that's like a sort of spin-off from his presence on Oprah. And he promoted this like weird green tea supplement. He had someone on who presented himself as a doctor, but in fact was a marketing executive at the company. He also never disclosed that he was an investor in the company and he stood to profit greatly. And he failed to disclose that there were absolutely no studies around whether or not this supplement would do what he was, this quote unquote doctor / marketing executive was claiming that it would do. Is that a con? That's a con. And he was, he was hauled in front of Congress and he was, lost some of his privileges as a doctor for that. So sometimes it's a con. That's a con. How many of the before and after photos of wrinkle cream? Like, where do you classify that? Do you classify that as a con? I mean, it's like, what are we calling a con? What are we calling marketing? What are we calling, so something like Dr. Oz and his weird extracts, con.
This episode of The Shift is sponsored by Shopify. If you've been nurturing dreams of starting your own business, 2026 is the year to make it happen. Maybe you've got an idea you can't shake, just buzzing away in the back of your head, or a craft that everyone tells you should be selling. All you need is a little help to make it happen. Well, you can make those dreams a reality in 2026 with a little help from Shopify. Shopify gives you everything you need to sell online and in person. However big or small your idea, millions of entrepreneurs from aloe yoga to Allbirds have already taken the leap. Shopify gives you all the tools and templates that you need to easily build your dream store. Setup is fast with their built-in tools, and marketing is built in too, so you can create email and social campaigns that reach customers wherever they scroll. As you grow, Shopify grows with you. In 2026, stop waiting and start selling with Shopify. Sign up for your £1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.co.uk/shift. Go to shopify.co.uk/shift. That's shopify.co.uk/shift. And you can hear your first this new year with Shopify by your side. I don't want to sound judgmental. That's the thing, like you're saying, you don't want to sound like hectoring but like, I know better.
In the 90s, there was that face cream called Hope in a Jar.
Yes, Philosophy, the company.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, that's it.
That's it.
Hope in a Jar. They should all be called Hope in a Jar.
There's a point you make which just completely struck home with me, which is that as women, we are the kind of anti-aging, or that we don't call anti-aging anymore, wellness, whatever. Sales pitch is always, the way it's aimed at women is very much like about regaining some mythical thing.
Oh, yeah, getting
that
back.
We've lost.
Yeah, it drives me bananas because it's always like you're very seldom, if ever, told that the thing you've arrived at is great. And I first started noticing it with all of the stuff after you've had a baby, when it's like, let's get you back. Let's get you back, your pre-baby body, your pre-baby
and it's
self,
all about your body,
pre-baby.
isn't it?
And it's like sort of about yourself. Like, you're going to do the things you did before you had a baby. One of the most profound things I remember from first having a baby is like, that is gone. That life is gone in this very deep way because I am now responsible for another human being. How little that is acknowledged, or even, I don't want to say celebrated because I don't know that needs, or just sort of said, like, your old life is gone. This is your new life. And that's more, it has to be okay. Not like it has to be okay because it's a fact. There's no going back. You have had a baby. There's another person who is entirely dependent on you. So let's just talk about what comes next, rather than like this desperate clawing back to something that is gone.
Yeah, it's like where you put it about that there was some moment, if you're a woman, there was some moment in time that you probably missed because you were probably too busy finding yourself wanting and thinking your bum was too big or whatever.
That's right. You were probably on a diet.
Yeah, exactly. And Nora Ephron Lee not wearing a bikini the whole time you were 26. But that moment when you were at your best, and it was probably between the age of 28 and 35.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say 32, but
yeah, I think maybe a little bit younger. But
I think it's even narrower.
Yeah, and it's that's somehow, okay, that's been robbed from us, but if we try hard enough, we can get it back. So then you're also a bad person if you don't try, if you're embracing what comes next.
Yeah, exactly. And then all that happens from then on is you're like in the desperate backward grabbing thing, because you know what happens then when you're done having kids? Menopause. And then you're like desperately trying to get back to your premenopausal self. And it's not going to happen. You're just going to fail at that too, because the train has left the station. And there isn't any going back. So you're set up to fail. Try to get back to your pre-baby self. You're not going to. Try to get back to your pre-menopausal self. You're not going to. You're set up to fail. From a marketer's perspective, I guess that's great because you're set up in this perpetual, customer position where all you're doing is buy, because you are always playing catch up because it's an impossible goal. So, to be really cynical about it, like they've got you right where they want you because you're just like clawing because you're never going to get there because it's gone. But it's quite depressing, right? So you can't just say like, oh, I'm at this phase of life. And it doesn't even have to be some like joyous embrace of it. It's just a fact. Like it just is, you've had a baby. You're not going back to pre-baby. You're in menopause. You're not going back to pre-menopause. Like it's just, that is where you are. It doesn't have to be some sort of riotous, like I celebrate it can just be like, that's it. with good days and bad days and things that were better about before and better about now. And like, everything is like sort of set up to be, it has to be like, I love this better than everything else. Like maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe there were better things then and better things that, like, everything is set up to have to be primed.
Yeah.
It can't just kind of like roll on.
Yeah. I mean, I have absolutely loved being in my 50s, but do I want my 20-something hip bones? Yes, I do. It's like they're not coming back, much as I try.
Yeah, there were things about your 20s that were great.
Mostly the 20s was horrible, but
There were things about your 20s that sucked, right? Like that you wouldn't want back.
So what was your experience of menopause?
I still get my period every month.
Oh,
so
you're not. What is your experience of perimenopause?
I'm not quite there.
Oh.
So I'm sort of in it, I guess. I still am peri. So I'm sort of in the throes of it, I guess. I'm 50 now, so I guess I was a bit of a late bloomer in the front end. So I guess I'm going to be a little bit of a late bloomer on the back end as well. It's funny because I don't really have a guide to go by because my mother and my grandmother both had really, really bad fibroids and had to have hysterectomies quite young. They aren't able to tell me when they reached a natural end. And I had a fibroid that resolved in pregnancy, but they had like really bad fibroids that were sort of keeping them kind of locked in the house. So they had hysterectomies. Yeah. And I'm really lucky because I don't have that. So when I ask, so they don't have a sense of when they naturally, and it tends to be quite genetic. So I don't know. What's funny is that everyone keeps talking about being hot and sweaty. And I am cold all the time. So I was like, oh, I guess like no one talks about like cold menopausal ladies, like cold perimenopausal ladies. But I was like, maybe I'm going to be a cardigan granny.
Yeah.
Like I have no one talks about the cardigan old ladies. I have a space heater under my desk and wear like 7 sweaters and a blanket all day. My hair is thinner, but
that's such an indicator, isn't it, of the passage of time? Because I bet when you worked in fashion, the space under your desk was full of heels you couldn't walk in. Now it's full of cardigans and jump blankets.
And like 7 sweaters.
Yeah, it's so funny because I probably had my last period in my mid-40s. And so and that is quite a long time ago now. And so whenever anybody says, oh yeah, I still have periods, I think, oh my God, I remember they were horrific and I bled loads. But the idea of having a period now, I just would not know what to do with it.
Oh, I look forward to that day. And I also am sort of like, it's so annoying to me every month. Like, I'm like,
so
am I
annoying.
Still like dragging tampons around and like,
Yeah, God. Oh, I wouldn't go back there.
What a pain in the ass.
The piece you wrote, I'm really interested in this, Welcome to the Menopause Gold Rush, that you wrote for the New York Times in 2022. I remember it vividly for several reasons. And one is obviously the shift, but also because scroll forward just 3 years in 2019, my agent was pitching the book, The Shift, which was about my experience of menopause and midlife. And the fact that basically, if you said the word menopause in public at that point, which was only 6-7 years ago, people would back away from you like they might catch it, literally like shuffle away. God forbid you actually said the word atrophy. I remember it being pitched around and we just assumed because there was such a dearth of information that it would do really well. I mean, honestly, you couldn't give it away. And one sales director actually said, who wants to read about middle-aged women? And of course, it was published in 2020. And then by 2022, it was like, everybody was like, whoa, menopause marketing opportunity.
Oh, yeah. No, I know they love it. They just love menopause. And I remember like one of Anne Fullenwider, who's one of the menopause. Like,
she used to edit Marie Claire, didn't she, in the States?
Yeah, yes, she did edit Marie Claire. Yeah. And she has this like menopause company. She was talking about working at Vanity Fair, like the early aughts. Maybe it was Marie Brenner or someone like that was writing a piece about menopause. And she was remembering with shame that they were all like snickering in the office. And like, all the young people in the office and everything like, oh, gross. Like, ew, who wants this piece? And that was totally acceptable. And that was totally normal. The thing I worry about with the menopause marketing as it's happening now, and there's the funny thing that happened after I wrote that piece, which is that I was really writing about like the marketing of it, right? And how it was this kind of as the headline said, gold rush, right? It was like, wait, we've been leaving all this money on people, and middle-aged women have a lot of money to spend, and let's go take their money, right? Like, why did we call this gross? Like, there's all this money to be made. And that combined with like the reversal of HRT research and combined with like people's embrace of telemedicine following COVID really meant that like there was this like sort of big financial opportunity in menopause. So right at the same time that I had the piece come out, the magazine had a piece come out about that a writer named Sue Dominus, who's an amazing New York Times journalist, wrote about hormone replacement therapy. Oprah Winfrey clearly said to someone in her office, I want the woman who wrote the menopause piece for the Times to come on. She was doing like this big streaming episode for her own, for her Oprah Winfrey network. And she said, so someone get the person from the Times. So I get invited to go on Oprah. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to go on Oprah, right? Like, even though I have mixed feelings about Oprah, of course you say yes to Oprah, right? It's Oprah. I get this call and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go on Oprah. And so I get invited to like the big like room at the top of the Hearst Tower in New York with 200 Oprah super fans from the tri-state area of menopausal age. And
can I just say, I know exactly the vibe because I have been to an Oprah convention in Atlanta. Yeah. And that we would need another hour to talk about that.
Yeah. So I get up there and I'm not like one of the featured guests on the stage because that's Drew Barrymore, Maria Shriver, and Michelle Obama's gynecologist. But I'm in like the front row so that Oprah can call me out in the audience and we can do some Q&A. Like, I have a microphone so we can do some like back and forth. And with all the Oprah super fans, everyone comes in and everyone's like losing their mind because Oprah's there. And, they come in and Oprah does like Amy Larocca is here. She does like the full like Oprah thing. And I've got my microphone. And then like several minutes into Oprah's questioning of me, I realized that the producer had gotten it wrong and she meant to get Sue Dominus to talk about how amazing HRT is.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, whatever, Sue Dominus. Sorry, I'm on Oprah. Too bad. And so I realized she doesn't want to talk about how, like, I basically realized in this that like my whole sort of thesis of my book is correct, that like the problem with wellness is that there's no room for gray, right? Like, it's black, it's white. And that this room full of women only wants to hear that HRT is going to solve menopause. We are curing menopause. That like the whole sort of like mood of the day is menopause is a problem and HRT is the solution. I'm like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, we have to stop thinking of menopause as a problem that requires a solution. And that the reversal of the research on HRT is not to say that we have solved menopause. In my opinion, this is the whole wellness industry's problem, right? Is not that there are problems with solutions. It's that there's things out there that might make some people feel better sometimes with some things, right? Not that we are like solving womanhood.
No,
because like
exactly.
Sometimes wellness is like, you feel like you're trying to like solve the human condition, right? As a whole. But we're not trying to solve the problem of humanness, right? We're trying to say there's certain aspects of life that we might like make a little bit nicer sometimes. But she's talking about menopause and she's like, things that were said in that room were like, you might think you have anxiety and depression, but I bet if you go on HRT, you will no longer need your depression meds or your anti-anxiety meds. I bet if you go on HRT, you won't need your heart medication anymore. You won't need, and it was like, it's not going to help everyone with everything. And for some women, it's still not okay. And for some women, it's going to be okay for a short period of time, not indefinitely. For some women, it might help with some symptoms, but not others. Like, you might go on it and it might help with your vaginal dryness, but you still need your antidepressant meds. Like, but it was like, oh, the thing about Oprah is she doesn't do gray. She does revival time.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that what most women wanted, I think certainly what I wanted, was information. I wanted a conversation and a choice about I wanted it to be something we could talk about. And what we've ended up with is something gone completely. So gone from, oh no, you can't have HRT. We won't give it to you. It's bad. End of. To you have to. It's like, what about, here's a choice.
Here's a choice. And here's some things that might help. And here's some things that might not help. And it might help your best friend and it might do nothing for you. And you might want to try it but you might want to keep your expectations in check.
Practically everything we've talked about could have been a whole conversation on its own. When you said just now, I'm going to move on from menopause. Sorry, everybody who wants me to just talk about menopause the whole time. You said about the cure for humanness, and which made me think about the different way that wellness is sold to men and women, and the way, we talked about the way it's sold to women a lot, but that kind of like maximization, hacks, longevity, performance enhancing, it's like it's all black with orange stripes. Yeah, goal oriented,
Tough Mudder. Yeah.
The solution for humanness being longevity and immortality.
Living forever.
And I don't know about you, but I've never met a woman who wants to live forever.
No, I totally don't want to live forever.
If you're listening and you do, drop me a message. But I honestly have never met a woman
with that goal.
No, I can't think of anything worse.
I know, have these guys never read Talk Everlasting? Do you remember that book?
No.
It's like this book you read in middle school about this family that gets the fountain of youth. And it's just horrible. It's just terrible. Oh. They have to live in hiding, and it's just a disaster. And they live forever, and it's just horrible. But you just sort of want to airdrop it on Silicon Valley, all of you. It's funny, because there's certain aspects of wellness. And when you talk about the Body Project and teenage girls and wellness, it's starting to affect boys. Unfortunately, it's not like the girls are getting more like the boys, it's that the boys are getting more like the girls. And I think that has a lot to do with social media and just the general emphasis on appearance and looks. And boys are doing this looks maxing where, a lot more young boys are going to the gym and they want abs and they want muscles and they want, they do that thing with their face, where they're trying to get the cheekbone lines and their photos. And so unfortunately, boys are sort of coming around to what's been a more traditionally female position of really caring about their looks and being more worried about them. And I take that as a loss, right? I take that as a bummer, right? That young boys are getting more sort of fixated on what they look like and worrying about it a lot more. But I think the longevity and the wanting to live forever and the wanting to hack and the wanting to, the movement comes out Silicon Valley thing where, as it's been explained to me, the biohacking, the idea that men in Silicon Valley, essentially, because it's a very male field, have managed to change society almost completely using technology and considering nothing fixed, right? Imagining that you can kind of improve everything if you understand everything as a system that can ultimately be hacked. And if you can hack such sophisticated systems to basically change the way people live, how hard could a human body be? The truth is, human bodies are really complicated and much more variable and much less predictable than most systems. But that's the general idea. And that's where a lot of it comes from.
You can't see this now.
It's very strange.
We're both making what the fuck faces at each other, but you can't see them. So.
I understand the logic behind that argument. I understand how 1 to 1 to 1 to 1, but the body is weird, and the body is unpredictable and certainly less predictable than a machine. It's a sort of male impulse to be reductive about gender. I was interviewing this guy who's sort of commonly called the father of biohacking, called Dave Asprey, and they have this idea that in the future death will be optional. There's these kind of two versions of it. A friend of mine who wrote a piece about this for the New Yorker referred to it as the bots and the meat puppets. One is that you sort of replicate the consciousness and put it into the cloud, and then you make a kind of replicant that lives in the world and connects to the consciousness in the cloud. And the other is that you take the form you have, that's a meat puppet, and it goes on forever. They appear to be kind of split on which is preferable. The general idea is that you and your unique consciousness goes on forever, as if the world sort of requires you.
Ugh.
And so when I was interviewing Dave Asprey, he was like, I might want another round of kids when I'm in my 80s.
I saw that. And who's going to have them?
And then he said that he might want to carry them in his body. So he's imagining sort of, possibilities that
They really think they're omnipotent, don't they? Oh, God, I'm almost regretting starting this bit now.
Yeah. But I mean, I think like rather than like, I'm sort of like personally the longevity stuff and all of that. I mean, that is what it is. I'm almost more interested in the thing of the kind of young boys and the looks maxing and how the kind of typically female ideas about, self-improvement and how you look are kind of filtering over to the boys. Like that kind of interests me a little bit more about how this generation's emphasis on looks is kind of becoming less, a more universal experience for kids.
Before I ask you the questions that I always ask at the end, because I honestly could talk to you for the rest of the day, and that's probably not great for either of us. Are there any things I would say as part of your wellness routine, are there any things that you actually think, yeah, I'm going to keep doing that. That works for me?
Yeah. Pilates. I love Pilates. I do a lot of classical Pilates. I really like it.
Machine or mat?
Machine. Yep. And like a really old school, like the sort of weird Joseph Pilates clanging around on those leather and metal machines.
I love them.
Yeah, me too. I really love them. I do it a couple times a week and I'm fully addicted. The stretching, it's the strengthening, I really like it. Sleep, which I know is other sort of periods in time. It was the whole successful people sleep 3 hours a night, or, there was this kind of emphasis on like to be a kind of accomplished person who didn't sleep. I'm really big on rest and sleep as a crucial part of health. So sleep, Pilates, fresh air, really kind of boring and basic things.
Yeah, kind of common sense things that don't really cost anything except for the Pilates.
And eating all of the food groups. You know how in fashion, it was always like the editors ended up always wearing all black. It's a bit like that, right? Like, you see the keto, the paleo, the this, the that, come and go and come and go. It's like a little bit like, I feel like watch wellness long enough and you'll be like, I sleep, I drink water, and I eat a Mediterranean diet. And then that's the kind of like wearing black of the wellness world. Like, the trends are going to cycle and cycle and cycle. I do cardio, which I know is very not fashionable at the moment. I find that it feels very good to get a real sweat a couple weeks, get your heart beating, which I know is very unfashionable at the moment, very unfashionable for women of our age because they say it's too much cortisol. Sorry, I like it. I find it keeps me calm. So I think it's sort of that, find your version of a uniform and ignore the trends because they will only cycle through. I'm never going to lift a kettlebell.
I really like that idea actually of it as a uniform, because it always struck me that there were all these fashion editors and they were either wearing black or they were wearing a shirt and jeans or a jacket and jeans. Mm-hmm. And they never ever wore any of the stuff they wrote about or that they told you to write.
Because they knew they'd have to get rid of it. Now the whole thing is don't ever do cardio, lift the heavy weight. You know what? I feel terrible if I do no cardio and lift heavy weights. I feel sort of like a sausage. So I don't change my exercise routine or my diet based on the trends. I've found what makes me feel good. Vary it if it's not making me feel good, but won't vary it because of whatever the trend.
And except for the prices of going to classes, it doesn't even cost you that much.
No, I spend a lot of money on Pilates. Yeah, but I love Pilates. Yeah. That's my expense. But that's because I really like it. And I know I really like it. Pilates is my main wellness expense.
And has the bovine whatever gone straight in the bin?
Straight in the bin. Straight in the bin. Yes. As I said, I went by the publishers the other day and they were like, oh, what should we do? My friend and I have come up with a theory that I've never done anything to my face and spend all the money you would spend doing things to your face on jewelry to distract.
Yeah, something around your neck. I can't believe I forgot to ask you about that. I read that you were one of only 2 people in your friendship group who haven't had Botox.
I've never had Botox.
No, nor have I. And I'm proud of it, actually. Not that I should be. It doesn't make me a better person. It
doesn't make me a better person. I mean, I read somewhere that says that you at a certain point you have the decision between looking old and weird, and I choose old. because if I thought it made you look great, I would probably do it. I don't think it makes you look great. Like, I just think it makes you look like you have Botox. Like, it doesn't make you look like you just like, oh, she's had Botox. Like, it's not like she looks amazing. It just looks like, oh, look, Botox, or oh, look, filler. And it's expensive and you have to do it all the time. So I would say spend the money on jewelry. And then if you're feeling kind of like, bleh, put on your jewelry and obfuscate.
Yeah, you know? And big glasses, so my friend and I were like, both wearing.
Yeah, like distract. My friend and I were sending each other pictures of necklaces we were wearing. And we both, like, I was saying to her, like, oh, forgive my turkey neck. And she was like, oh, forgive my Great Dane jowls. And then we were like, I didn't notice because I was looking at your necklace. And she, you know, and then in 6 months, you don't have to go get Botox again. You can just buy a new pair of earrings, or, you know, so that's my other big wellness advice. Jewelry, buy jewelry. And
that is excellent.
Do a little distraction.
That's an excellent note for me I can't believe we've been talking so long, to ask you the questions I always ask at the end and then release you. Yeah. What is your emotional age?
God, I don't know, 50? I don't know, probably the age I am, I guess.
Give us a book recommendation.
A book recommendation. Oh, that's great. You know what? I'm just finishing right now because my daughter was reading it in school and she asked me if I would read it alongside her. So I was rereading Never Let Me Go by Ishiguro. It's just so great. And I hadn't read it for so long. I was just thinking about this question of what if there's a way to prove that we have souls? Because we were talking last night about this central question of, you know, they use art to prove that the clones have souls. And is that what it is? And it was just really sweet. It was just such a beautiful book. And sometimes I think it's really nice to reread books that you read when you were younger and see if they resonate in the same way, or if you sort of take something totally different out of them. It's kind of an interesting way to take your pulse, you know, and because sometimes a book can read totally differently to you.
What advice would you give younger women?
Stop worrying about your body. It's great. It's fine. It's not the main story of you.
If only.
If only.
Who is your old broad role model?
My old broad role model is my great friend in New York, Susan Burden, a family therapist. She runs 2 different charities in New York that she founded. One is a center for aging people, where people from all walks of life who are aging and lonely have friendships and things to do, and it's amazing, and she's committed. And then the other is organization for youth aging out of foster care. So she is both a family therapist and runs those 2 organizations. And she's hilarious and cool and amazing, and she's about to turn 80, and you would think she was not about to turn 80.
She sounds incredible.
And she's my sort of North Star.
Yeah, she sounds absolutely amazing. What is your superpower?
Superpower. Do I have the superpower? The thing I always strive to do, and I don't know that I always succeed, but what I would like my superpower to be is to find the absurdity and the humor in life and situations and people, but also be sympathetic to them and not, you know, so know that things are ridiculous, absurd, and it's funny, but also it's okay, and be kind about it. And know that, like, I'm as ridiculous as everyone else. Yes. Like, it's not, you know, try and do that without judgment.
And last one, how many fucks do you give?
Try to give fewer every day. Like, if I can give a few fewer fucks every day, that's like a day in which I'm proud of myself. Fewer fucks every day.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy The Shift and would like to show your appreciation, why not buy me a coffee? Go to www.buymeacoffee.com/The Shift with Sam Baker. You can hear a new episode of The Shift every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, please do rate, review, follow, tell your friends, because it really does help other people find us. And if you'd like to know more about my own experience of shifting, my book, The Shift, How I Lost and Found Myself After 40, and you can too, is out now in paperback.